Hi everybody, welcome to our presentation on typhoid fever. We hope you're entertained and hope you learned something about typhoid. My name is Trevor Carnahan and I'm glad to be taking microbiome with you, so let's learn something. Let me just hit screen share. Okay, so like I said, this is our presentation on typhoid fever. I'm this guy right here, Trevor. Let's start with some statistics about typhoid. According to the CDC, or the Center for Disease Control, typhoid fever is a life-threatening illness, and it is caused by this bacterium. So it's a bacterial illness called Salmonella typhi. It affects approximately 5,700 people in the U.S. every year, and 75% of those actually get the disease while they're visiting another country. So generally, we don't have it here in the U.S. It's been pretty much eradicated. There are 21.5 million cases worldwide, so it is still pretty prevalent worldwide. As you can see with the next one, almost 200,000 deaths every year worldwide. So it does affect a lot of people in a lot of countries, and a lot of people do die from it still every year, even though it's been mostly eradicated in the U.S. It's only transmitted human to human through the fecal-oral route. You'll hear a little more about that later with Victoria. Another statistic is that without therapy, it can kill from about a tenth to about a third of the people that it infects. After about 3 to 4 weeks or about a month, when the infection has run its course, it does claim quite a few people to death. A little more about the etiology. Again, the bacterium is called Salmonella typhi. That's the agent that causes typhoid fever. This here is a representation of the bacteria. It's not an actual picture, but it shows you that it's bacillus. It also shows you that it has this paratricious flagella here, which means it is motile, or it's able to move. Paratricious means that all the flagella are here on the one side. We went over that last week, just a little reminder. Again, down here, Salmonella typhi is gram-negative. This picture here shows us that they show up kind of pink or red, not purple, so it's definitely gram-negative. Now we have this short video we're going to watch, just a little less than 2 minutes of it. Show called The Doctors, but this doctor is going to tell us a little bit more about the etiology of typhoid fever.
Luckily, there are only about 400 cases annually in the U.S. Now, the causative agent is Salmonella, but it's not the same Salmonella you hear us talking about all the time when we say there's a Salmonella outbreak from eggs or spinach.
Chicken or something, yeah.
That's a Salmonella that when you catch that or get that, you're going to have potentially nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, fevers. This is a particularly virulent type of Salmonella called Salmonella typhi, right? And it can cause things beyond just good old-fashioned diarrhea. But it's unique because it only passes from human to human. Is that correct?
Well, the mode of transmission is what they unfortunately call the fecal-oral route. So that's why you got to wash your hands. Exactly.
Yeah, almost 200,000 people die from this illness. There's 22 million cases worldwide. I mentioned only 400 in the U.S. I just want to quickly go through what happens. So Salmonella is transmitted through the fecal-oral route. So you might eat food from someone who's been infected. When that happens, initially you may not know anything is wrong. And you might just have some basic symptoms of GI upset, and you may not really think that, hey, this could be typhoid fever. You'll have maybe pain, fever. You're going to feel ill. But with typhoid fever, it's really what happens over time. Over the course of the next week or two, instead of getting better, you're potentially getting more and more sick. And what happens is that strain of Salmonella will actually become invasive into your intestines. When that happens, in some cases, you can actually get perforation of your bowel. When that perforation occurs, bowel contents can leak into the abdominal cavity. You can then suffer from sepsis and end up with multi-organ system failure. You can die from it.
Absolutely, sure.
But
All right, Elisa, it's up to you.
All right, hi guys, I'm Elisa Aragon. I will be presenting reservoir and signs and symptoms. All right, so the reservoir, humans are the only reservoir for typhoid fever. Let me present this actually. Humans are the only reservoir for typhoid fever. One example of a human reservoir is Mary Mallon, also known as Typhoid Mary, who worked as a cook in the United States in the early 1900s. She spread the disease through the contaminated food and water she served. She had served a total of 8 families, and 7 of them experienced the typhoid disease. She was discovered and put into quarantine to prevent her from spreading the disease to other people in New York, and then released with the promise to not cook food for others. After not following this agreement, she was taken back into quarantine for the rest of her life. She spent 26 combined years in quarantine until she died. This picture here is the infamous illustration used in the newspapers. You can see here that they show that the air she is breathing and the food she is touching is being contaminated by her while she cooks. She was responsible for the contamination of at least 122 people and at least 5 deaths. So on to the signs and symptoms of typhoid fever. There are about 4 main phases that a person will go through when dealing with typhoid fever. Signs are conditions that a doctor can evaluate and use to diagnose. I noted the signs with an asterisk. Symptoms are physical conditions that a person can notice happening to themselves. Each stage lasts approximately a week, maybe more, and maybe less, depending on how soon the person starts receiving treatment. So stage 1, this is where symptoms start to be experienced. It consists of a slowly rising temperature, malaise, which is general discomfort or uneasiness, like a headache or a cough or just a general feeling of illness. Epistaxis, which are nosebleeds, can occur. Sweating, weakness, and fatigue, as well as diarrhea or constipation. Stage 2. This is where the symptoms begin to develop and worsen. The fever continues to increase to high temperatures, and the malaise, weakness, and fatigue, diarrhea, or constipation also continues. Other signs and symptoms included in this stage are an extremely swollen or bloated abdomen, weight loss, loss of appetite, rash, delirium, and mood changes, including calmness and agitation. And then stage 3 is the worst. This is the worst part of the illness. This is where a person will usually lie motionless and exhausted with their eyes half closed, which is known as the typhoid state. The signs and symptoms in this stage include intestinal hemorrhage, including causing internal bleeding, as well as intestinal perforation, encephalitis, which is the inflammation of the brain, and bloody stool. A rash called rose spots also appears. The fever at this point is extremely high at around 104 to 105 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a significant difference compared to the average body temperature at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Also, the weakness and fatigue, delirium, and diarrhea and constipation continues. And then step 4. Step 4 is where symptoms start to go away. This includes defervescence, which is the subsidence of a high fever. A general ill feeling may continue to occur, but overall the symptoms should subside.
Okay, and hi, my name is Victoria Ackerman, and I am doing the transmission, treatment, and control portion of the presentation. Again, so I'm doing the transmission. Again, typhoid fever is a life-threatening illness that caused by the bacterium Salmonella typhi. A person with typhoid fever carries the bacteria in their bloodstream and internal tract. In addition, a small number of persons called carriers recover from typhoid fever but continue to carry the bacteria in their stool, often for years after their treatment. You can get typhoid fever if you eat food or drink beverages that have been handled by a person who is or Salmonella typhi bacteria gets into the water you use for drinking or washing food. The CDC recommends either cooking your food or boiling it. Eat nothing raw. Also, they tell travelers to never eat anything from the street vendors and to always peel your own fruit after washing your hands. Never eat anything that has already been peeled. Typhoid fever is more common in areas of the world where hand washing is less frequent and water is likely to be contaminated with sewage. The majority of people in industrialized countries pick up typhoid bacteria while traveling and spread it to others through the fecal-oral route. You can contract the infection if you eat foods handled by someone someone with typhoid fever who hasn't washed carefully after using the toilet. Once Salmonella typhi bacteria are eaten or drunk, they multiply and spread into the bloodstream. It can also inhibit the lymphatic tissue of the small intestine, liver, and spleen. Once the body is infected, it reacts with fever as well as other signs and symptoms. Now let's talk about treatment and prevention control. Typhoid fever can be treated with antibiotics. Most people with typhoid fever feel better within a few days of starting antibiotic treatment, although a small number of people may die of complications. If you are planning to travel outside the United States, you should know about typhoid fever and what steps you can take to protect yourself. 2 basic actions can protect you from typhoid fever. First, avoid risky food and drink, and the second, to get vaccinated. There are 2 types of vaccinations in the United States. Each vaccine needs to be taken at least 1 to 2 weeks before going to last for years. If you have been vaccinated, you can ask your doctor for a booster. The first vaccine is TY21A. It is an artificial immunity, which means protection from infection obtained through medical procedure. It is 1 capsule that can be taken orally. You need to take it 4 times a day or 2 days 1 week prior to your trip. This vaccine can last for 6 years. It does need a booster every 5 years. The second vaccine is VICPS. It is also an artificial immunity. It is an injection, but you only need 1. It has to be taken 2 weeks prior to your trip. It can last for 2 years, and it needs a booster every 2 years. There are 2 commonly used antibiotics. Doctors usually recommend ciprofloxacin, Kyprolis for adults, or an alternative is cytotoxin, which is an injection. Both children and adults can receive ciprofloxacin. In the United States, it's estimated that approximately 5,700 cases occur annually. Most cases, up to 75%, are acquired while traveling internationally. Typhoid fever is still common in the developing world, where it affects about 21.5 million persons per year. So please be safe while traveling, and thanks for watching.